The international break is officially over, and we are here to recap it all with you. As always, welcome to the Anglo-Italian pod. My name is Rory. I'm joined by my very good friend Adam. Adam, how we doing, man?
Very good. Yeah, we did have to adapt ourselves to very minimal amounts of football this kind of week and weekend, right? But we did manage to take in some games, some interesting results along the way. I'm sure we'll be reminiscing about our respective nations in both Ireland and Poland. But more importantly, we'll be talking about England and in the other episode, Italia, of course. And boy, both nations did quite well, didn't they, Rory?
Yeah, despite the shirt I'm wearing at the moment, I'm going to come at it with a positive outlook. Very, very positive for England, of course. Started off with the typical furore with Lee Carsley in the Daily Mail, but I think he got through it all, and I'm really excited by the kind of new dawn
Yes.
in England. I think it was very exciting. And yeah, Ireland, I'll then do the other side of the coin, and that was all a bit depressing. But yeah, lots to cover in this episode. So we're going to take a very quick break, and when we come back, we'll start with those three lions. And we are back. England, 2 wins out of 2. Breezing through Division B, making it look like light work. Adam, it's been all pretty a new look to England, right? A nice, optimistic feeling. Thank you, Gareth. Thanks for the memories, but time for a new direction, right?
Yeah, certainly. When you saw the stars and the pattern of play that England displayed against Ireland, you kind of saw almost like a kind of revolution in terms of like the way that they were going to approach the game. Certainly seems a lot more expansive. And I know the caveat will be it's only Ireland, but it was always there to be potentially a tenacious game because of the rivalry. And whilst maybe the modern day fan of both nations probably don't see it necessarily in the same vein as some of the older generations, yeah, England made it easy on the day. I think obviously we will allude to Ireland and their preparations, which was farcical and yeah, summed up very
Continues to be
nicely by Roy
farcical.
Keane as well. But yeah, in terms of an England perspective, it was very like nice on the eye, wasn't it? It was appealing. It was expansive. You saw the kind of delicate plays. I thought it was really nice to see the likes of Jack Grealish, who I alluded to in the previous pod about maybe taking up this Kevin De Bruyne-esque kind of role. And you saw kind of maybe not necessarily that element of his game, but you saw his kind of approach to it. And certainly, as I was evident at the Finland match, you started to see a bit more maturity in terms of his play, you know, being able to stay back and hold on to his positioning, you know, and where he needed to, he actually did the overlaps as well in terms of the wing play. So actually, that opens up an interesting dynamic in terms of the approach. And obviously, I suppose widely we'll speculate about some of the other new additions to this squad as well. But what was your necessary about your kind of impressions on how England approached it against Ireland? Were you surprised or maybe pleasantly surprised in that same sense as well?
I had a full-on identity crisis during this game. I think it was like really, oh god, a very tumultuous afternoon. Like, I think I was watching it almost not hoping England lose, but hoping Ireland did well, right? And I was watching the whole time. I was like, bloody hell, this England side looked really good. Like, and it was just so comfortable. As you said, the 1-2 touch passing. I think there was nothing particularly revolutionary in terms of like he just played players in their positions. He had Anthony Gordon out on the left. He had Trent as right back. He had Grealish playing more centrally. It was just like, oh yeah, this is where these players are meant to play. He's not trying to fix like ram square pegs in round holes. It's like, no, I just know the best player for this position. Or the best position for that player. And that's it. Nice and simple. Like, and I think it was so much more dynamic than at the World Cup. It was just a lot quicker. It just the speed of the pass is the thing that jumped out to me the most. I think we all remember from the Euros just watching that, like when it was at Arsenal, they called it the Arc of Doom, where the ball just gets passed around from the centre backs for like 20 minutes. And we just at the Euros, everything felt so slow and so like, yeah, just lethargic, and this performance was like 1-2 touch, runs off the ball. It was just so exciting, and I think when you've got that alongside the sheer quality that is in that team as well, I kind of saw it as Gareth Southgate's role has been to consistently get England to latter stages of the tournaments, and that's what he's done. Right, we've got to semi-finals, we've got to finals. We've not, played beautiful football, but we're now. This is a team that are used to getting to the later stage of tournaments, and now it looks like they're kind of adding a little bit more of like, okay, it's a given that we'll get to the final semi-finals. So now let's play a bit of nice football. Let's try and be fun, try and be expressive. And it's just kind of adding that little bit of an extra layer on top of the work that Southgate's done. I just think it was really, really exciting, but with a big caveat, this is Division B in the Nations League, right?
Sure.
Ireland are fucking terrible, right? Finland are probably slightly better, and Greece are probably slightly better again, right? But I think these are teams that England should be beating without really thinking. And I think it's given Carsley the luxury of being able to pick some players that you wouldn't necessarily think would be there, right? So Angel Gomez, who was fantastic, right? Levi Colwill starting at left back, like just being a bit more experimental.
Yeah,
you can do that when you know that the competition isn't going to be as like you're not playing Spain, Germany, France, whatever, right? And I think this could be like weirdly the relegation to Division B could be a blessing in disguise for England in terms of like it gives us that space and time to like figure out who the players are that are going to be the next. Who are going to be the next players coming through, right? Obviously, Jude Bellingham's still got to come back. Phil Foden is pretending to be ill, so he can't play. So there's players that can still come in, right? Yeah. But you're seeing those, like, is Gomez a better option than Mainu, right? We can figure out who is going to perform that role, right? Who are, like, so I think this opposition is a really big luxury for England and Carsley, and we could see the benefits of this in the future massively in terms of when it comes to a tournament being like, we're just being more aware of the squad we've got, and like not playing France, Germany, and Spain every week is going to be is going to be much better, I think. Who were the players that stood out for you in particular, and why was it Gomez? Because he was fantastic when he came on.
Gomez certainly was impressive in the Finland match, definitely, in the sense that he was able to be quite adaptable to different positions. He was certainly no pushover, let's put it that way, despite his size. I mean, I don't know if you've ever seen him. He is so small. He reminds me of this is going to show my age, but when Leon Knight came onto the scene, basically, he was diminutively small. He was so tiny, and that's what it reminded me of. But yeah, he's got a maturity on his shoulders as well. He can kind of read the game in terms of what he's got to do. He does, what I would say about him, he does very basic and simple things, but he does it really nicely, and he kind of adapts to different pockets of spaces as well, which was interesting in that kind of formation against Finland, for example, where he's dropping into those kind of right back, left back positions to grab the ball and progress where he could. Maybe at times the only kind of criticism that I would have said, and this was probably aimed at the majority of the team against Finland on that day, was they weren't very quick and direct with the ball at times, whereas, they were trying to be more patient. And that's probably to do with the virtues of Finland sticking like 11 men behind the ball. So it's very difficult to really break that through. But that said, I mean, when I'm nitpicking at something as small as that shows you how well he's done. And that was his first major debut in that respect. He started the game and played really well alongside the likes of Declan Rice as well, which I think they kind of complemented each other in that respect, Rory.
There's an interesting role for Declan Rice in this England team, and I really hope that Arsenal and Arteta's paying attention, because I think we're really seeing Declan Rice add more and more to this box-to-box kind of midfielder role, and really like the finish against Ireland was absolutely outrageous. It was an incredible goal. Like, oh God, it was an incredible goal. And him having that kind of free role to just bomb forwards and backwards, I'm like, I really like this version of Declan Rice, and I really hope that Arsenal now go out and get another number 6 and we can just let Declan Rice run around the midfield, because I think he's really impressive in that role. And him having the kind of leash or being unleashed is really, really exciting. I think he was absolutely incredible against Ireland as well. I think he like just leveled up in that game, like really just him and Grealish had a point to prove, right? And they both did it very well. Sure. So congratulations. But I think, he was really, 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 really impressive. I also think Anthony Gordon on the left just did exactly what you expect him to do. He's just such 100%. A nuisance constantly. Like, it now does kind of feel like a missed opportunity at the Euros, right? That maybe he had a point when he was half complaining, like he should have been starting, right?
100% against Finland. He was just simply the only man that seemed at times that he was creating those opportunities. He was the willing runner. He was stretching the defense. The right back for Finland was really scared in terms of how he approached himself, especially because just the trickery that Gordon has to his game. You don't necessarily see it sometimes when it's in highlights or if you watch him on TV, but actually his directness is what really is phenomenal to watch. And I think in some respects Saka let himself down in the sense of he was maybe protecting himself ahead of this weekend's games for his club, which is understandable, but there were times where he's dilly-dallying on the ball, maybe not being as quick or maybe forceful with the action, and I felt like his deliveries were a bit subpar for what he normally is known for. But that said, Anthony Gordon for me was man of the match against Finland. I know the plaudits goes to Harry Kane, and rightfully so. However, Anthony Gordon was the more direct in terms of attacking sense. I thought he brought some energy to the way that England played at times. And without him, I think in the first half, I would say England struggle. And that's the interesting dilemma that you've got. And we're all saying this without the likes of, as you say, Phil Foden not being there, Cole Palmer, who I think was definitely missed in this game, Jude Bellingham. I don't think anyone missed him in this particular 2-game set. So that's very good from an England perspective to have that kind of level of depth and still able to produce this kind of performance. I think the only thing, Rory, I picked up on, and I know Colwell was deployed in the first match against Ireland as their left back, but the balance in the second game where we had Rico Lewis, as well as he adapted to that position, he always was more forceful with his right foot. He was always picking it up every time the first touch. So I think that is a problem if Colwell is injured, because then you're kind of looking around and scrambling around. And I suppose this was the question that I had is, do England kind of start thinking about the long-term replacement for Luke Shaw? Because inevitably it feels like every time England are hanging out for this balance, he's never there because he's always injured. So it feels like inevitably they have to bring someone progressive from the under-21s into this setup. My suggestion here, and it might be far-fetched, but Harrison Burrows, who recently transferred from Peterborough United to Sheffield United, he's a very good inverted kind of style left back. He can play more attacking. I think it'll be interesting to see what kind of season he has in the Championship, but I would not be surprised if a Premier League club is sniffing around him right now to observe his performances and see if he's good enough to step up. Now, it might be far-fetched at this point, but there isn't many left backs, are there, Rory?
Getting him into the under-21s might be the move, and then see what he can do there. I think, left back has to be. We've got so many right backs. I think left back is the position that we were talking about during the Euros. It was the position that was worrying about, right? I think I really like Rico Lewis, but I don't think left back's his position. I think we've once again found ourselves with just one left back, Levi Colwill, who's very, very good. He's fine, but there is a real lack of depth there at the moment. I really like Rico Lewis. I kind of want to find a place for him in this team because I think he's such a unicorn of a player, just how versatile he is, and he just does everything incredibly well. Like, he's just almost like the complete footballer, like the kind of not in the same position, obviously, but you know how like Rodri just does everything really well. You feel like Rico Lewis just does everything really well. So I think there has to be a role found for him at some point. I think he's going to be the replacement for Kyle Walker at some point, probably. But the left back position does need addressing. But like you said, we're nitpicking in this England team now, and I think what I really liked about, to go back to kind of on this, like, we've got so many options in so many positions now that, like, Anthony Gordon thriving on the left when Saka does get doubled up on, because every team knows that
Yes.
Saka's the main outlet, right? When he gets doubled up on, all of a sudden they're going, oh shit, there's that guy on the other side as well, right?
Yes, exactly.
And it's just like the constant threats from everywhere. And this is what teams like Spain, Germany, and all them have had in the past. And it feels like maybe we're getting to that point with England, and this Nations League break is really giving us a chance to look at all those players properly.
Yeah. And I think
No, go on.
I was just going to build on your point with Grealish being in that number 10 role as well. He's able to support those wingers as well. So he's able to go either side. And it was intriguing to kind of see how they overlapped and intertwined with each other. It was really good to watch sometimes. That
felt more like Villa Grealish. It felt more like
100%.
Oh, this is the player that we really enjoyed watching. I think I'm still sticking with my Jack Grealish needs a move out of Man City at some point. But I think that was just him in the middle as a number 10 was like, oh God, yes, we've got our football back. He's not a robot anymore. He can actually like express himself. So it's really, really, really great to see. All good for England. All good. And now let's talk about Lee Carsley, I suppose. Let's talk about Lee Carsley. Sure. Big break for him. Big kind of statement for him as well, I think. Obviously, the England job always comes with its off-the-field distractions. And I think...
Sure.
I don't want to get into the debate because it's a complete fucking waste of time. But I think he dealt with that really well. Sticking to his guns completely and being like, no, this is like... Go fuck yourself. I'm doing what I'm doing. That's not my job. My job is to coach this team, right? I think he's dealt with that really well because I think Southgate had a bit of credit in the bank, like being an ex-England player, lots of history, Carsley doesn't really have that. He wasn't, sorry, Lee, but you weren't like an elite level player. So it's not like he's got that credit in the bank. All we know is that he's a very good coach. The players love him. And I think getting over this first PR issue is like another just like feather in the cap of like, right, this is a guy who could, there's not much getting in the way of this guy becoming the England manager permanently, I think, because as we said, we've seen an improvement in style. We've seen a clear improvement in ideas, right? And a clear idea got across quickly. He's obviously worked with the players a lot. Like, do you think he's going to get the job permanently? I think the only reason he doesn't get it is if Pep decides he wants it at the end of the season, right?
Yeah, I think he stands a good chance. I think these two games really showcased what his ability is. I think he openly admitted, and I did see this in an interview, he kind of said he did feel that it was out of his depth at times with this role over the last two games, but it put him into a zone where he had to perform to his best of his abilities, and that was all about ensuring not just that his coaching on the day was spot on, but also ensuring that the people around him got the best out of the players as well, which was an interesting take. And you kind of saw maybe maturity in Carsley that we didn't hear about previously, right? It's been long ago being quoted that when he had the opportunity to become Brentford manager, this was before Thomas Franks. He openly declined it because he said, I'm not ready and I don't want the pressure of being a manager. So it's fascinating to kind of see how maybe over time it's starting to build up his impressions, and he's got more open to that kind of role and what it participates and what it really takes out of you. I think this was an interesting introduction for him. If he's allowed to just get on with the coaching element rather than being the PR man, as you alluded to, then I think there's a potential that he could progress England further on. What that actually entails, I don't know. And it depends on the aspirations of the Football Association, essentially. Do they see themselves as winning trophies? And it feels like that is the step that they're trying to achieve right now. So, yeah, like you say, I think it is dependent on someone as world-class as a Pep being potentially involved in the setup. And if not, then Carsley's not a bad second option, I would say.
And he's won trophies with England. He won. Yeah. He won it. He won with the under-21s. He's won with these players. Like I think it's almost joint up thinking from the FA, which is really, really, really exciting. Really, you can see this clear idea and this clear direction. So Yeah, I think the only way he doesn't get it is if Pep accepts, and then you have to accept Pep if he wants the job, right? You have to take him. But yeah, good stuff for Lee Carsley. Delighted for him, delighted for England. From the Ireland point of view, on the other side of my personality, that was fucking horrendous. The entire international break has been. I felt the only thing I thought was, I kind of know what it feels like to be an Everton fan. I was like, it's just watching this team and it's just misery for 180 minutes. The first half against England, I was like trying to be super generous. I was like, no, there's a really big gap in quality here. It's not that Ireland are that bad. And then I just saw the lack of fucking pressing and the lack of any form of tackling. And I was like, this is just disgraceful. This is not a performance like, yes, you're not as good as England, but you can make it difficult for them. And I think they just didn't do that. The second half was slightly better in the smallest of ways. It was slightly better the second half when England took their foot off the gas and Ireland kind of started to get a few attacks, started to press, started to like hassle, make it a bit more difficult. It kind of got a little bit more promising. And you thought, okay, maybe there's something here. And then the Greece game was just, I've watched that Ireland game a million times. I feel like every Ireland game I've watched has been that. We're passing it around quite nicely. We can't take a shot. And then we concede from the first shot on target outside the area. Like the amount of times we've conceded from 25 yarders is just insane.
Yeah.
Our goalkeeper, arguably our best player is our goalkeeper. So the goalkeeper isn't the fucking issue, right? It's just not closing people down. And it's just so basic and so like just the players that are still getting picked. Mac Doherty still getting picked. The guys
Seamus Coleman,
in 2016 when he scored against Italy, it was fantastic, whatever year it was. Not anymore. Like there needs to be a whole flush out of these older players, bring in a lot of these exciting players from the under 21s and try and see, like, because Ireland are going to get relegated again. We're going to be in Division C next year. It's going to be embarrassing. Like, we are not going to win a game in this Nations League. I can't see it. Like, it's that bad. But then it all comes from the FAI and the organisation at the top. They waited 7 months to appoint a manager, so he'd never met the players, right?
This is mad,
John O'Shea picked the squad.
Yes, I heard
so that the manager could come in and meet the players and watch them train to be like, right, this is who I've got. This is what, like...
Yeah.
So I honestly think the first half in the England game, he thought, okay, let's just sit back, hold our shape, let them keep the ball and just like play super defensive, but let's just be sensible.
Yeah.
And tactically, he was telling them, like, don't press, just hold your shape, make it difficult. It's just that the players were also crap and England were very good, right? So I think he was caught between two stools of like, and then the second half, he's like, okay, that didn't work. Right, let's go to the uber pressing, dynamic, aggressive, because he is learning in that 90 minutes what his players are capable of doing and what tactics fit, right? With players that he didn't pick because the FAI are unable to make a decision. Right, unable to run anything. Like there was the League of Ireland Fan TV put up a really good thread, just like describing everything that Ireland, the FAI, have done wrong. It's the only country in Europe that doesn't show their own league on television.
Yeah,
right.
Well, that's
the League of Ireland is not on TV. You have to pay for League of Ireland TV so that you can watch the games. Right. If your national organization aren't interested in showing your grassroots level football, not even grassroots, your top division level football, if they're not interested in promoting that, what are they doing? Because there is never going to be any improvement. The winners of the League of Ireland get 100,000 euros.
Nothing, is it really?
I'm pretty sure you get more for the Carabao Cup, right? I know that's English football, but like it's the lack of investment in Irish football is mind-blowing. I know it's not the majority sport in Ireland, right? I know it's behind rugby. I know it's behind Gaelic. I know it's behind hurling, right? But it is Ireland is very passionate about football. The attendances at League of Ireland, for the size of the grounds, they get bloody good attendances. It's a passionate support. Like, but you just know that without the investment in Irish football, it's never going to get better. So you're looking at this Ireland team, and it's just like, it's not getting better. You know that for the next 10 years, at least, this is what we're going to be served up, right? And there are some exciting players in the youth teams, like Moran at Brighton, and Sinclair is kind of, it depends who you talk
Ebosele,
to. Ebosele. Like, there's some exciting players. There's a lot of Irish players that are moving to Serie A very young and moving to Spain, because there is apparently an exciting generation coming through. But they're all leaving Ireland because they know there's no infrastructure there, right? And it's just the same old story with Ireland. And I just think the FAI, I thought there was going to be I thought there had been a turnaround once John Delaney left, and they kind of sacked, they've sacked Stephen Kennedy, but you might as well have him in charge now, because
exactly. I was going to say this.
You might as well have just let him continue what he was doing, because it was building towards something, even if very slowly. It was building towards something. Now you've just gone, no, pull that up, and we're just going to bring in this random guy who we could get because we chased everybody else and everybody else told us to go fuck ourselves. Like, it's just an absolute mess. And that's when you take that into context.
Yeah.
Obviously, that doesn't mean the players don't press and they don't tackle and they don't but you can see that there's just this whole atmosphere around Irish football at the minute. It's just like, what's the point? As opposed to in 2002 or 2012, whenever, there was a bit more of an optimistic spirit around it.
Yeah,
that's kind of disappeared at the minute.
Can I just raise, though, as much as I think they are to blame, the Irish FA, Hallgrimsson obviously not being able to know his players, does that kind of just spell out a bit of laziness on his part? With the greatest respect, if you've been appointed the national manager and you're not able to maybe go and see the squad, do some research. It's not very hard to have just gone onto YouTube and just gone and had a look at other players that you're not aware of and see what their abilities are. Also, from a scouting network, you would have known context of contacts that might be able to go, look, keep an eye on this guy, have a look at this game, come to our games and have a look at this guy. I just get this sense that there's also laziness on his side, that he could have prepared much better for this game. Granted, if the circumstances were you can't start until this date, which is your employment date, fair enough. But even when I'm going into a new role, for example, I kind of want to find out and understand, prepare, like you say. I want to understand, what am I getting my feet into, right? You might have ideas, and that's probably the best time to be in it. But like you say, being thrown in the deep end and being expected to be the messiah and pull off a result was never going to happen. It's just ridiculous. But at the same time, you have to have some preparation. You need to know what your players are. And I'm sorry, but he could have been researching some ex-Premier League players for all I know, but clearly didn't have a clue who he had in his team. He didn't know them very well. And as you say, the approach was just diabolical at times. I mean, the words of Roy Keane summed it up. The FIA can't really do anything in a brewery, basically, was his words, with a swear word in between, right?
I think it was, that it didn't endear him to me. I was
exactly.
Okay, so you've not done any research into, but then you think they offered the job to everyone and he's the guy who said yes. So you're he's clearly he's not been employed.
Just get the average punter that was at the ground. I'm sure they would have done better.
But I also think there's a big thing of jobs for the boys in the FAI as well. And this was a thing that Roy Keane's talked about a lot as well. John O'Shea should not be anywhere near it. They gave him the games. They gave him the games as interim, and it was atrocious. And they I can still see, and this was something that they raised on League of Ireland Fan TV as well. And I was that's a very good point. I can still see that Hallgrimsson or whatever is sacked within 6 months, and then O'Shea is just installed as manager. It's going to happen, right? It's going to happen, and we're all going to fucking hate it. It's just also predictable. And as a big allegory for this whole thing, my mum's hometown team and my League of Ireland team, Dundalk, incredibly successful for years, won the league something like 6 years in a row or something incredible, are about to go out of business and are bottom of the league because there's no investment in the league, right? No investment in the teams. They keep inviting in dodgy Americans who keep shafting it. And it's just like, that sums up the state of Irish football at the moment, that within 10 years, a club's gone from like dominating the league, financially dominating games in the Europa League against Arsenal, traveling around Europe, to getting relegated to the Irish First Division because there's just zero fucking steady investment in the league or anything. It's just, in a way, it's good that it's actually highlighting the issues within Irish football, because it's been criminally run for so long, and maybe it being this bad will actually provoke an action. But I'm not holding my breath, because it's just so depressing, so depressing. The Greece game was just, oh god,
terrible.
I feel bad for Ogbene, honestly. The whole time I was like, he's so good, but he's got nothing around him. And like the whole, I don't know, I'm going to end there because the formation was weird. It was just, the whole thing was very mad.
Anyway,
good.
We move on.
Poland, Kiwior. I heard rumblings about Kiwior. Adam, what happened?
Yeah, unfortunately, he didn't have the greatest of games against Scotland. I mean, the greater picture is this is a team in transition, so we're adopting a new style of football. There's a new approach. The coach has tried to implement this at the Euros. Obviously, it had relative success, but also at the same time, not as much success as maybe Polish fans expected. There's a little bit more heart to the performances. Against Scotland, I'd say we were fortuitous to even get a win in the end. And that's putting it mildly. I think they wanted it more, certainly in the second half. But it felt like it was a bit of Poland of old, whereby we're just headless chickens at sometimes, and we are really reliant on the big players within our teams, your Zelinskis, your Lewandowskis, to do something. Zelensky didn't necessarily have a great game in this. However, he was overrun in midfield. At times, he was the last man chasing the Scotland attacker, which is not a position you want to be in if you're Zelinsky, for example. But the very nature of the way we've set up, for example, so we had a 3-man centre-back pairing, and that's typical of the European style of football. You know, you got your progressive wing backs as well. Zalewski had a fantastic game, and again, he's been a name that's been shouted about in the last 2 games. He's been doing so well for the Polish national team, and ultimately he got his just desserts in terms of his performance. Ended up with a winning goal as well in the Scotland match. But Kiwior, unfortunately, he was off the pace, very much, I suppose, bundled and really bullied by the likes of Lyndon Dykes from a Scotland perspective. And that's not a disparatization towards Dykes, but he's better than that. He can control, Serie A style attackers. And it was just a shadow of the kind of confident self that we've normally been associated with Kiwior. And it just felt like he was so off the pace. We spoke offline, and it feels like inevitably he needs to maybe break free from Arsenal, whether that be a loan move or just a permanent move from the club, because unfortunately, off the back of that, he was dropped for the game against Croatia. So it wasn't great. Poland over the 2 games, I think, like I say, fortuitous is the kind of theme, I would say, because we only lost to Luka Modric in the end in the second game, a 1-0 defeat against Croatia. A phenomenal goal, free kick, which was superbly hit. But in that particular game, Poland were just dominated by Croatia, and more, I suppose, just the cleverness and just the way that Modric controls the game and the tempo. This is something that I think Poland fans are expecting Zielinski to do a lot more. I think there's some interesting elements. We got Mateusz Bogusz, who's having a phenomenal season for LAFC. He's a talented youngster. Marcelo Bielsa had him at Leeds, and he did trust him. There was a thought process behind him that he could do well at Leeds whilst Bielsa was there. Unfortunately, Bielsa moved on, and inevitably Leeds decided to cash in on Bogusz. So. And there was links of Celtic maybe potentially moving in for him just before the window closed in the summer. So, there's some bright sparks in that respect. He didn't have a great game against Croatia, but inevitably no one really had a great game in that game. And I suppose The question mark is also in the goalkeeping department, where Wojciech Szczesny has declared his retirement from the national team. We had Marcin Bulka, who had maybe not the steady game that a lot of Polish fans expected. Maybe should have been a bit more commanding of his box at times, especially with the Scotland onslaught from free kicks. I put some of that blame towards the defenders in front of him. I thought Davidovic, who we know from Hellas Verona, not a great game. It was terrible and wasn't marshalled well alongside Badnarek, for example, who we know from Southampton. The previous weekend, he gave that calamitous goal against Brentford. So
he does have a lot of them in his highlight reel, I'll be honest.
Yes,
he has a lot of them.
I think, it's ironic we're talking about Barclaysman's at the moment, aren't we? And if you're talking about calamitous, he's almost in the same category as Titus Bramble at the moment with
Richard
his
Dunn
moments at the moment.
Vibes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, Poland are very much a team with potential, should we say, Rory is the best word. But unfortunately, there's a lot of learnings from the last two games. So I'm not overly worried, but I don't know how we're going to progress. Let's wait and see. But interesting times for Poland.
Yeah, interesting times all around. Before we end this international edition, I just wanted to talk about the big headline story very quickly, and I'm kind of throwing this at you, Adam. San Marino won a game.
Yes.
San Marino won Liechtenstein 0, right? We have to address it. If you've not listened to the Sweeper Pods emergency episode that they recorded from San Marino, I would recommend going out and listening to it. It's only about 20 minutes long. Live reaction from the game. Incredible. Nico Sensoli scoring the goal to make Liechtenstein now officially the team on the longest losing run with 41 games. Huge moment for San Marino. It was so good because it was like everyone was talking about this game like this is the moment. This is if you're going to do it, you have to do it now. And within the last few minutes, by all accounts, Liechtenstein were really piling on the pressure. There was like 7 minutes additional time, but they managed to hold out. Incredible win for San Marino. And I know it sounds like a bit stupid, but there is a bit of a spark of an ember with San Marino in football. And there's seemed a little bit of investment, a few exciting players. And this is a thing where it's like, okay, a marquee result, 141 games, they got a win. The player who scored wasn't alive the last time San Marino won a competitive game. So absolutely incredible scenes. And just wanted to give a tip of the hat to San Marino because just, a beautiful, beautiful moment. Also, Anguilla out in North America got their first ever win as well, I think. So a big international break for the Minnows. It's great to see, right?
It was beautiful. I just wanted to touch on a really nice story that I heard from, I can't remember if it's Paul Watson from the Sweeper Pod, but he mentioned that essentially during the kind of run that San Marino have been having, they invite the kids to attend these matches. Now, you can imagine they've been going through despair, not knowing if this team is actually going to win. But what happened on this game? On this occasion, these kids were apparently so close to the barriers when it was coming to full time that those faces must have been a joy to watch at the same time, like to see them embrace a win for the very first time. Apparently, some of them have been going since 4 or 5 years old. So it's been a while. But at the same time, what a beautiful moment for those kids, right? To embrace a win. Fantastic story.
Incredible. Like actually seeing your country win a game like that would just be the best moment. So a nice happy story to end on with the international football. They did then lose to Moldova 1-0, which is kind of annoying that it's only 1-0, but they did get their all important win. So Auguri San Marino, congratulations. Massive win there. Guys, we're going to take a very quick break. Something's just got in my eye if you think I'm doing something weird on YouTube. I'm not winking at you. And we're going to take a very quick break. And when I come back, we're going to be talking all things Premier League. It's back, baby.
The Premier League is definitely back this weekend, Rory. You can relax. We don't have to wear these international shirts going forward, at least for a couple of months anyway. But let me kind of take the listener and those viewing right now through the fixtures that are going to take place this weekend. So we'll start off on Saturday. And at 12:30, we've got Southampton at home to Man United. This is followed by the 3 p.m. kickoffs, which we have Brighton and Hove Albion taking on Ipswich Town, Crystal Palace taking on Leicester City, Fulham taking on West Ham, Liverpool taking on Nottingham Forest, and Man City at home to Brentford. Then we move into 5:30 kickoff time, and that is Aston Villa versus Everton. Before at 8 p.m. we've got AFC Bournemouth taking on Chelsea. And then we move into Sunday's fixtures. The first one, 2 p.m. at White Hart Lane, or as they call it, the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. And that is Tottenham taking on your beloved Arsenal, Rory. And then we move into 4:30, where we've got Wolverhampton Wanderers taking on Newcastle. But I thought, Rory, we would just kind of just preview a few of these games. I'm going to start off by talking about probably not necessarily the game to watch out for this weekend, but I think it could be an interesting battle. And this is Fulham versus West Ham. Now, people might kind of wonder, why have I picked a battle of the mid-table, both teams lying in 12th and 13th? But the reason is, Rory, last time that Fulham took on West Ham at Craven Cottage, they won 5-0. If you kind of try and remember, there was a very shocked David Moyes, fans really shouting at David Moyes, saying he doesn't know what he's doing, can't get the best out of the players. But yeah, obviously they come off the defeat against Man City prior to the international actual play. And unfortunately, they have got Nicholas Füllkrug, who has got a doubt for this match with a calf injury. We did allude to it in the previous pod about the fact that there's potentially an issue up front because, yeah, they're really reliant on Mikel Antonio. But I'm also excited about this Fulham side. They've got in Sander Berg before the window closed. He didn't play in the previous round of games. Could be a pivotal player to maybe force himself into reckoning and maybe be that Paulinho replacement. I think they're different types of players, though, Rory. But yeah, I'm thinking there's going to be goals in this match. Do you kind of feel that sentiment?
I think these are two of the teams that people were most excited about pre-season, right? In terms of their transfer activity, in terms of like, you know, how far can they push this year? I think this could be a really interesting game. I think you've picked a good one. It's going to be more interesting than, well, maybe not Southampton United, but it's going to be an interesting game. I think, yeah, it'll be interesting to see if Mikel Antonio can if Lopetegui can get the most out of that attack and if he can try and get them to work a bit more. Because I think against City, they weren't terrible. It was just Man City, right? They played very well. So, but Fulham at home, you know, the Arsenal collective there seem to be doing quite well for them between Iwobi and Smith Rowe. They're scoring quite a few goals. So I think, I like this game. I think it could be a good one. I think it's a very good choice.
Definitely. We'll move on then. And the next game that I've picked is Aston Villa at home to Everton. Now, again, this is a game that probably people listening are thinking, what the hell are we on about here? But this is quite an interesting dynamic, right? We've got a team that's bottom of the table in Everton, come off that defeat against Bournemouth. Inevitably, there's been a lot of rumours going on in the last couple of weeks. In particular, Sean Dyche has already been threatened with his role. Unfortunately, it sounds like David Moyes is potentially being lined up as a replacement, which would be fascinating to see how that dynamic works. I don't think it will happen, Rory, but there is also the Villa dynamic here. And that's what I wanted to allude on to a little bit more, because obviously came off this kind of run where they lost against Arsenal 1-0, 2-0 even, sorry. The fitness and form of Ollie Watkins is questioned here. I think it's going to be imperative. I don't know if he's actually going to play. That's how doubtful he is for this match. But there's also this kind of tension behind the scenes. We have to allude to it, but it's Aston Villa with the pricing strategy for the Champions League matches that they released, which was almost 50% up, if not more, for the games. And then on top of that, you've got them charging even more for disabled fans to park near the ground. So that's tripled or at least doubled in terms of price, which is going to cause an uneasy tension at Villa Park. And on top of that, last time Everton did turn up at Villa Park last season, very similar circumstances, maybe not to the same extent, but Everton went away with a 2-1 victory on the day. And this is, you know, after everything Unai Emery's built up at that club in the last kind of season, you know, going into the season, a lot of optimism. Do you feel like this has kind of demolished all of that hope with the fan base in particular?
It's such a stupid PR loss. Like, it's just sometimes clubs do things like it reminds me when Arsenal sacked Gunnosaurus, right? And everyone was like, what the fuck was that for, right? Like his wage makes a difference. Like, it's just such a massive PR loss of like, attacking disabled fans, like, it's just, it's like from the Jim Radcliffe book of PR, like, if you know what I mean, like how to tank your image in 30 seconds. So I think it's really like, fans aren't stupid. We all know that most clubs could now survive without the gate receipts, right? Like, all the money comes from TV. The gate receipts make up a tiny percentage of the money that actually comes in. For them to kind of dress it as we're trying to get around the PSR rules and we're doing this for you, for the club's good, is really fucking cynical, and I don't like it at all. You're trying to treat fans like idiots. Like, oh, we're taking your money because you want the club to do well, so it's your fault. It's kind of like mad gaslighting of fans. Like, I just think it's such a massive PR loss, and I really hope there's protests from the Villa fans. From what I've seen online, there's a strong feeling about this, and like, okay, no, not everything he does is positive, but Stan Collymore has been really vocal on this as an ex-Villa player, and been like, you know, and really kind of pushing for the fans and, you know, getting behind that movement. So I think there is a big thing to be done there. The whole Champions League ticket thing is just like, it seems like massively cashing in. Like, oh, we don't know if we're going to be here again, so fucking quick, get it while you can. Like, and it's just massively cynical and horrible. And I hope that, well, you know, there's it's the two fan bases that are most miserable in the league at the moment, I think, going up against each other. It should be an interesting atmosphere. But for the game on the pitch, I expect Villa to kind of just get this job done fairly easily, I'll be honest. Like, it's in the script that Onana's going to score, right? He's definitely going to score.
You'd think so, yeah. I mean, you'd think quality-wise that Aston Villa have a lot more. But like I say, there's always that inevitable kind of thing about Dyche, that he gets results when you least expect it. And this could be the catalyst. Look, you've got to remember, for 80 minutes against Bournemouth, they actually did play well. They dominated.
Yeah, no, they did.
So all they've got to do is just remember, hold on for an extra 10 more minutes and you'll be fine. You'll be fine. Right. Yeah. Otherwise, we'll see some more memes over the weekend, I'm sure, from Everton fans. So
I did see the Joseph Yobo's yo-yo, which is a great fun to say, and a great account to follow. Is with just such a stupid joke, but really made me laugh, with them putting in the new seats. It's just like, I fucking hope they put mine in facing backwards. It was just such a stupid joke, but I really did enjoy it. Everton fans' gallows humor is a regular feature on our show. Let's continue to the headline game, I suppose, Adam.
Yes.
It's at the Armitage Shanks Arena, the old toilet bowl. Arsenal are visiting, and it's going to be the North London derby. We have no midfield, and Tottenham have no excuses not to beat us, correct?
Well, supposedly it is the demise of Arsenal.
Well,
so
exactly.
Some accounts have put. But yeah, it's going to be a fascinating dilemma, because obviously Arsenal fans have been shitting themselves, it's fair to say, over the approach to this game. It's bad enough that Declan Rice obviously got suspended, but then obviously Odegaard getting injured, so is Calafiori, and obviously you're fearing the worst here. But yeah, it's been interesting in the last 24 hours and the build up to this game, where it feels like there's also a bit of pressure on Spurs here. As much as we're saying there's some issues on the Arsenal perspective, Spurs, there's still no news on Solanke. You know, he hasn't trained still. Mickey van der Ven, again, another one that was supposedly potentially 50-50 for the Newcastle game, still not in for this game. So there's question marks about him. You'd think this is the opportunity for the likes of James Maddison to dominate that midfield, and given the kind of quality gap that maybe Spurs will be able to exploit in that Arsenal midfield, there's an opportunity for them to do well. But we know quite well there is a term called Spursy, and this could be applied for this match. But yeah, inevitably there's other factors as well. I made a note of this. Jared Gillett, he's the Aussie ref. He's refereed Arsenal on various occasions. Now, Rory, you are pulling that face for those that aren't listening. However, generally it's been fairly successful in Arsenal's kind of games win ratio here, but this will be his first ever time of refereeing a North London derby. He's also the first foreign referee to manage a North London derby, so there's a bit of history there. But he's also got a bit of history with Postecoglou, because both of them clashed in the Aussie League. So this is going to be fascinating dilemma to see what happens in that respect. But let me put it to you this way. Obviously, there's probably not a lot of expectation on Arsenal to do much in this game, but at the same time, you can't really afford to drop points because your next game is Man City. So inevitably, it feels like these next two games could decide how your season pans out. But it's too early to say that as well at the same time. But yeah, do you feel there's a lot less pressure on Arsenal than there is on Spurs going into this North London derby?
I think it's like Schrodinger's pressure. There is at the same time zero pressure and the most pressure known to man happening at the same time. Because I think obviously going into this with our first choice midfield gone, like Marino fucking Gabriel breaking Marino's shoulder, Ødegaard snapping his ankle, and Rice getting sent off. You're looking at it and you're going, okay, right, how can we patch together a midfield here? So you're heading into it with a calm head going, okay, we are massively at a disadvantage here, right? So in that case, go out, play, see what happens. If you lose, okay, well, it wasn't the first team. There's still plenty of time in the season. But also, you lose one game, Man City go and beat Brentford, and it feels like the title's done in fucking September. Right. So it's like there's these two things going on at the same time. And then you've got to play City away still with no fucking Ødegaard, right? It feels quite big as a week. And in between that, we've got Atalanta away. I don't know who we pissed off, but we really pissed them off. So it feels like I see it as three really big games. I hope that Arteta's seeing it as just three run-of-the-mill games. Go out, get the job done, keep going. If you can't win, don't lose kind of vibe, like I'll bite your hand off for a draw in all those games right now, I'll be honest. But I think there is still enough quality in the Arsenal team that we can turn up and win at White Hart Lane. I still think I'm quietly confident that we can still get a result there, because I think as good as Spurs can be, they've had a pretty slow start to the season. They've not really been impressive. Like you said, the players missing. They've got players missing as well. So I think it might not be like a vintage game or a vintage kind of two vintage teams going out, but I still think we can get something done here. City away, we'll see what happens. At least we'll have Declan Rice. I don't know why we have to come off an international break straight into like the two biggest games of the season. I don't know why that has to happen, but fine. That's the way that the computer randomized it, right? We'll see, I suppose. On Monday or whenever we do our next record, hopefully I will not be hanging from the rafters, but we'll see.
But just to also add that kind of other alternative view, Postecoglou, if he loses this match, there's going to be a hell of a lot of pressure on him. There's already been murmurs from a Spurs perspective. There's automatically that feels like there's a divide in terms of you're either Postecoglou in or you're Postecoglou out. Now, defeat against Arsenal, it doesn't feel like it's the defining moment for him, because I still think this is a group of players that are in transition. They're still trying to build into that ethos that Postecoglou wants. I don't think he's necessarily still happy with the squad in terms of the balance. But at the same time, there is a bit of naivety is aimed at Postecoglou around how he deploys the tactics. He's open to the fact that he's going to play a style of football that won't be pleasing to others, but he is not going to defend that, his tactics are going to be a lot more open for certain games. And unfortunately, it does feel like to a lot of Spurs fans that he's not learning necessarily that sometimes you have to be pragmatic in certain games. Do you feel this is going to be an issue that is going to be prevailing even after a result against Arsenal, even if they do lose to Arsenal? How long do you think feasibly the pressure is not going to buckle and take its toll on Postecoglou?
Any Spurs fan who's Postecoglou out is an idiot. I'll just say you're an idiot. You're an idiot. I think what he's doing at that club is very impressive. Look, his attitude, his lack of pragmatism, I personally love it, right? And I think it's his strength and his weakness, right? It's both of those things. Because when they turn up and absolutely rock teams, and you're like, Jesus Christ, how do you deal with that? It's incredible. But then also, he's left the door wide open, right? But that's what you know is going to happen with him. That's what you know when you're going to hire him. Those are the players he's buying. Like, you can't, a leopard isn't going to change his spots. That's what he wants to do. Fine. If you're a Spurs fan who thinks that he's not doing well enough, you've got a fucking hole in your head, because I honestly think, like, last season, beyond the fact that they wanted to lose, so they didn't get the Champions League football, they were very close to getting Champions League football, right?
Yeah.
Like, in his first season, the squad, you're right, is nowhere near where he needs it to be. There's still a lot of improvement that needs in that midfield. I think the midfield needs improving a lot anyway. So the squad isn't where he wants it to be. But I think the fact that there's Spurs fans that are Postecoglou out is brilliant. I hope they're really loud on Sunday and they make the atmosphere absolutely toxic, because they're idiots, clearly.
It might happen if Arsenal score an early goal.
Fingers crossed. I hope it gets really toxic. But yeah, we will see. I just want to get it out of the way. This game's always the same. I just want to wake up at 6:00 on Sunday and someone can tell me the result, because I'm not going to feel at ease at any point between now and then.
Very true.
But big weekend, good weekend. Let's see, guys. I think that's everything in the Premier League this week.
That is, yeah.
Thank you for joining us. We hope you enjoyed it. Adam, anything to say before I send the listener home?
Just to say, it's great that we reached a milestone on YouTube, which we are now over 300 subs. It doesn't sound a lot, but we are aiming for small goals here, Rory. So thank you to everyone that has subscribed, and we're doing a really good series courtesy of you on Twitter as well. So Gazzetta Man, if you haven't already voted, make sure you do. Make sure you keep in touch with that. And I think that's it. Make sure you just join us for the Serie A episode as well, and Italian episode, more importantly.
Exactly. Shout out to the Cultures Pod for letting us piggyback on their idea with the Gazettas, man. Sky Better pricks. Everyone's stealing their ideas and not crediting them. It's fucking horrible. Guys, thank you for joining us. As always, you can find us on Twitter at Italian Anglo Pod, on Instagram at Anglo-Italian Pod, and on TikTok at Anglo-Italian Pod. If you're on YouTube, hit the like and subscribe button down here. We will love you forever. And if you're on a podcast, if you're listening, give us a follow, give us a rating, and we will also love you forever. We will see you next time. See you later.